Welcome to 15 And, where we grow through the transformative stories and principles from the Bible. I hope you enjoy this teaching. I hope you share it with others. And I hope you go to 15and.org, click the Donate Now button, and support this mission.
A few months ago, one of my daughters, her phones stopped getting calls. So we had worked it out that we were going to meet at the AT&T store. And a couple days right before that, my wife's phone completely dies. It's like the matrix glitch occurred. There's green lights just going through it. You know it's done. It's done. So I had to end up going to the store a couple days early than I'd planned. And I'm like, while I'm there, I'm going to get my daughter her phone too. It just makes sense. My eyes have changed since I got my phone, and it was a few years old, and it was the little 13 mini. So I thought, I'm going to get one I can read. And so I go in and I talk to the guy, and I'm like, here's the thing. I know this isn't your fault. This is not your fault. Every time I've ever been in here, it takes forever. Like, we're an hour plus in. I usually don't get exactly what I want. Somehow I have 2 extra lines, and who has the time to call about that and get that taken off? So I just need you to know up front, don't tell me something you can't do. Let's do this as efficiently as possible. I mean, I'm front loading big time. The guy's like, I'm the district manager. I'll be able to take care of you. Awesome. So we start working through it. So I'm like, okay, so I need my daughter's phone. I need to get it, but I don't need her phone to die because they can do that now. And so her phone can't die. She's not here. She's a couple suburbs away. And so we get all this going. Now, just all the transactions alone took over an hour. Okay. Over that hour mark, at some point, he goes, I'm sorry, I just killed your daughter's phone. I was like, that was the one thing I asked us not to do. He had assured me it was fine. It could be done, no problem. So now I've got to get her a phone a couple suburbs away and work and, all the chaos and not having a phone and just the stuff of life. And I know I should be more mature. But Dark Chris starts to show up at this point because, this is the thing I asked us not to have happen. And I didn't lose my mind. I wasn't terrible. I wasn't awful, truly. But I will tell you this. On the inside, it was raging darkness. I am invested in this process now. I got to drive and get her the phone. I got to get my wife her phone. This is not exaggerating. It's first world problems. I get it. But I'm 4 hours in on this thing. By the time it's all mostly reconciled. And all I could think about in my mind was how there's a storm going and Jesus is asleep in the boat. And I can't freaking handle the AT&T store. And I want to say all that to say this today as we enter into this. There is going to be a moment here as we walk through this where it's going to feel like, oh my gosh, there is this giant gap between me and Jesus. And that's the point. It's not to make you feel bad about who you are, but to show you how revolutionary what occurred when Logos became flesh. That there is something in Jesus that in the Old Testament, part of how evil was thought about was the sea, the darkness, the abyss. And Jesus isn't afraid of the water coming into his boat or his house. He sleeps in peace because he knows something that we need to know. And I'm captured by it. I'm captured by what we can grasp today in this series that we're talking about called Dirt, Rethinking Evil. Because as we've taken this journey and we start to think differently about evil, we've been moving sequentially through this process to really get a deeper understanding than just, oh my gosh, it's evil versus good and they're fighting it out and we hope good wins. There's just something at work so much more than that. And it's also not this place that we've seen in movies and theatrics and horror films that Jesus offers some kind of deliverance recipe. And you have to really exert yourself when evil's happening. If that's what you want, you're going to be disappointed. Because Jesus, how he interacts with dirt, evil, sometimes he speaks a word, sometimes he asks a question, he spits once, he notices the power just goes out from him at one point. The only consistent thing isn't technique, but his connection with the Father. That's the big idea. It's not about what we do with our own intensity to try to convince evil of something or show ourselves strong or powerful. It's our connection to Christ. So we've inherited a bad habit to understand what we're going to look at today. And that bad habit is we think of evil wrong because we think of evil as just the direct, gross confrontations to good. Sometimes evil starts like dirt on the feet. So we talked about this idea that Jesus washed the disciples' feet. It wasn't their fault that their feet got dirty. Sometimes we just collect dirt. These things start to happen in our lives. And as Jesus is interacting with people in the Gospels, he's interacting with things that weren't their fault. I mean, it wasn't like somebody said, I want to wake up and have this sickness or disease. And by having this sickness or disease, I then will be excluded from my family, because that's what happened. They were thinking about things in terms of community spread. And yes, we could use the language that we've been using around cleanliness and purity, but it's not like they made that choice to do that. The other misunderstanding, as we start to unpack this in the Gospels, another bad habit we've inherited, is we think it's Jesus versus what had happened in Judaism. That Jesus is completely slam dunking on the law or undoing the law. So all of this that is in Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, the Torah, Genesis, of course, also, as we looked at this flow of evil that was being unpacked through this progression, oh, now Jesus is here. And so it's all about a moralism and a rebellion against that moralism. And that is a absolutely broken, shallow way to see it. And I'm going to show you that. I want you just to believe me. We're going to look at it in Scripture. So to get into the spirit or mind of this, I'm going to remind you the metaphor. We're looking at this. How do we rethink evil? We rethink evil as evil is not creatively original like good is. It is a lesser form of the good. It's a parasitic. And so the way that we interact with evil is we clean, guard, extend. We clean the house with truth, we guard it with wisdom, and we extend it with unity. We add rooms to it. We deepen relationships. Love flourishes. Now, that's the positive, and I've only stated the positive to you at this point. I want to show you the inversion, the negative. If you don't clean, what are you doing? You're being defiled. You're being defiled because you leave truth. You abandon truth. If you're not guarding, you're exposed. The boundaries collapse. You have no walls. There's no way to protect. You defile, you expose, and then last you divide. You divide. Love is fractured. Community is broken. Now, at this point, as we dig into this, I'm giving you these two opposites. Clean, guard, extend, defile, expose, divide. We looked at, in Genesis, the devil isn't some horned figure dragging Eve off. It's a subtle twist of God's original words. In Exodus, God defines himself as loving. In Leviticus, we see the purity code. In Numbers, we see how the priestly class was abusing it. Here's the question I have for you that I hope is occurring in your mind at some point in this series, maybe right now. Why is God so uptight about so many of these little rules? It seems weird. Like, if we're about to see how Jesus interacted with these rules, all these rules they had, why did they have these rules? Because they're built on things that God asked them to do. And yes, they took those rules further. But why did God care? I mean, like truly, in the scope of things, what's it matter if you use a lamb that is defiled versus one that isn't defiled? Is God an uptight moral monster just trying to manipulate us and get us to do things just for the sake of? This is a weird illustration to use, but this is how my mind makes sense of it. I don't know if you know the championship coach, John Wooden, who led his team to so many winning seasons. One of the things that he did when he was training his players was he would teach them how to put on their socks and tie their shoes. Now, it is not hard to imagine. You've got some guy who's come in as a 5-star recruit from his high school. Like, he is the guy. He has a lot of swagger behind that. And he goes to this college program, and his coach sits him down and starts teaching him how to put on his shoes and socks. I bet there were plenty of players who openly rejected it at first. I bet there were way more that in a very mature way used their body language to show how much they protested this. you know they weren't mature with it. They're rolling their eyes. They're using their body language to say all these messages. Now, was the coach doing that to be maniacal and just to try to break their will? No. He had a theory for it based on real practice. If you don't put your socks on right, you're going to get blisters. If you don't tie your shoes right, you're going to get blisters. And if you have blisters, we don't win championships. What he understood was this: we got to get the foundation in place. Now, I'm not asking you to take my word on this. Watch for it. Look for it. This is what I've been trying to build a case for as I'm showing you the flow of evil in the biblical record. God knows this. God knows if he gives you a law about how to order your finances, the law doesn't make you clean. It shows you what to do. Why would God want them to have structure, truth in their finances? Catch it. So they could guard the house and they could have systems of generosity. Why would God want them to have systems of generosity? So the poor could be cared for. So if you look at the prophets, major and minor prophets, which is the one piece of the Old Testament we really haven't pushed on this series yet, God's angry. And God's angry, why? Because you're defiling the process. You're not living with truth. You're not doing this the way that I wanted you to. So you're not living with the systems I wanted you to. And so not only are you offering a defiled sacrifice, stop doing that. But you know what I hate more than all your sacrifices? The way you overlook the poor. The way you're not compassionate. Like, stop with the singing to me. It's just noise. Like there's a profound model to all this. And we have to understand that, because that's what's going to open up our vision of what Jesus was really doing. Jesus wasn't stepping into a place where there's this stringent moralism and he's rebelling against it. It's not that he breaks the Torah, he fulfills it. How? He removes the sources of dirt in real time. That's what we're going to look at. So if you want to look at Mark with me, 1, I'm going to build a case for you through a number of passages. And as I build this case, again, you're searching it out for yourself. Mark 1. Now, there is a word here that you think you know what it means. I don't have time to spend on it in a big way. It's not germane to even our series, but there is the best scholarship believes that when we look at leper in the Gospels, it's not the skin condition we think of today. That's kind of been transliterated in. So it was more, and this is more powerful to the point. It was more just like psoriasis almost. So you've got these skin conditions. Now it gets progressively worse with what we see Jesus interacting evil. And I know that hurts a lot of people's ability to raise funds for a mission trip to India. But the reality is there's not good scholarship that this is the skin condition we think of where flesh is rotting. Again, that's not germane in a big way to this series, but it does matter because we see a progression of Jesus healing in the smallest of things, non-dramatic, skin conditions that they didn't really understand that got you put on the outside, and really big exchanges we're going to see. Okay, so a leper came to him, someone with a skin issue that got them outside of the community. That's the better way to read it. A leper came to him, begging him, kneeling down to him and saying to him, "If you want to, you can make me clean." Now again, dirt, rethinking evil. What's the focus? What's the verb? What's the word? Make me clean. Clean me. That's what I want. Being moved to compassion, he stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, "I want to be made clean." Now, there are days when I read the Gospels and the accounts here, and some in Acts, And my faith is like 100%. I'm like, this is miraculous and amazing. Some days I read it, I'm 99%. Some days I'm 80. Some days I'm 51% or greater. I'm like, I don't understand this. I don't understand this. All I know is this. There were a group of disciples who were downtrodden and discouraged and in despair. And these are not people who would have just flippantly given their lives. They had already gone back to their normal lives. And they had some kind of encounter that shifted everything. And they were willing to go die for that. That doesn't just happen. Never before in human history, and it's never happened since, sociologically, where there a group of backwater, oppressed people became so transformed that they upended the most powerful empire at that time. And that's exactly what happened in this movement. And all I know is I want to reach above all that I know in the world and touch and feel and see a love that is higher. And I have contact with it in moments that blow my mind. And it's the gradient scale we looked at the beginning of our teaching last week, when sometimes it's these revelations and these experiences, and sometimes it's a subtle reminder of a verse. But I'm in on this. I believe this happened this way. And Jesus, out of his compassion, full divinity, but emptied himself of it, living full humanity, becoming as we become, struggled in every way we struggle, but never sinned. It's a profound mystery. I don't get it. Had every temptation we have, never fell. In his humanity, grew up under the burden of being human, but had access to the full divinity. And something miraculous occurs. Being moved with compassion, he stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, I want to be made clean. When he had said this, immediately the skin condition, again, they're translating how they're translating, departed from him, and he was made clean. He strictly warned him and immediately sent him out and said to him, see that you say nothing to anybody. Why? Well, Jesus is building his mission towards Jerusalem. That's the focus. The focus isn't just what he's doing here. So there's a lot in that passage, but the big idea I want you to see is this. Go show yourself to the priest. If it was just a rebellion against a silly moralism, he would have said, done. Done. But he says, go show yourself to the priest. Why? Because he understood that the system that was put in place, God wanted them to clean with truth, guard with wisdom, and extend with unity. This person was unclean. They were defiled. So they were exposed, left vulnerable, and fractured, not cared for, and loved into the community. So Jesus says, go show yourself to the priest. Why? So he can verify that you're clean now and you can be welcomed back in the community. Well, what does it mean to be welcomed back in the community? I can participate economically. I can get a job. I can provide. I can buy my daughter a bike. I can go to my son's birthday. Like, this is crazy stuff, how much you were cut off from the community because they were trying to protect themselves. They didn't know. They didn't have some of the answers we have. So Jesus touches him. In any other story, what would have happened? This is the reversal. The impurity from that man would have got on Jesus. He would have got those skin cooties. The impurity from that man would have got on Jesus. That would have spread the impurity. In this story, the reverse happens. Holiness spreads, not the impurity. And what's Jesus doing? Not rebelling against the law, reintegrating this man in. This is what we talked about with Numbers. The point of purity isn't to punish people, it's to restore people. Another story for you to see this. Mark 5. A certain woman, you can read along, I'm in verse 25 if you want to. A certain woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years and had suffered many things by many physicians, had spent all that she had and was no better, but rather grew worse. Having heard the things concerning Jesus, came up behind him in the crowd and touched his clothes. Some translations say the corner of his garments. For she said, if I just touch his clothes, I will be made well. What the heck? Why did she think that? Immediately the flow of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Immediately, Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, turned around in the crowd and asked, who touched my clothes? What in the world? There is so much going on here. I'm going to push through this in a way that I think you'll never read this passage the same again. First off, I'm going to quote from a scholar, Matthew Thiessen. Christian and profound in his scholarship. He has a book called Jesus and the Forces of Death. And it's 100x to what I'm being able to share with you here today. He'll actually walk through the skin condition piece, but it'll really help you see passage after passage after passage what Jesus is doing. And he has some provocative wording, and I love it. He says this: contact with Jesus causes a discharge of holiness. His body automatically and involuntarily purifying those who touch him. So in the Levitical code, they were really worried about discharge. What's coming out of you? That's what makes you evil. And then again, they didn't have the science we have, but they were trying to make sense and learn to self-govern. And so they're figuring all this stuff out. And man, there's some jokes to make here that I probably shouldn't. We'll make them in our community time. But what Matthew Thiessen is doing here is he is reversing. He's showing that Jesus reverses. It's not the evil coming in, it's the good going out. A discharge of holiness. And Jesus is so powerful, even an involuntarily healing occurs through the touch. So his disciples said to him, you see the multitude pressing against you, and you say, who touched me? He looked around to see who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what she had done, knowing what had been done to her, came and fell down before him and told him the truth. Isn't this interesting? So did she have faith or not? She had faith to touch him, but now she's afraid. We'll unpack it. He said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be cured of your disease. Take a ride with me, okay? Touched the corner of his garment. That's what a lot of passages say. What is that about? Let's go back to Numbers. A couple weeks ago in this series, remember when I told you that in Numbers, God's giving them all of these correctives? One of the things was to put tassels on their garments. And I referenced that because I said the Pharisees made this whack. They take God's good thing and make it a lesser version. How? Because they made their tassels long because they wanted to be seen. They were to put their tassels on their clothes, just like we would wear a bracelet or get a tattoo or have a thing on our lapel as a reminder. Just wear the tassels. It's a reminder. I'm with you. I'm taking care of you. I'm watching out for you. And then they made the tassels longer. Question for you. Was Jesus a rabbi following the law? Yes. True or false? The answer is always yes. Yes, he was. What would have been on the corner of his clothes? The tassels. Come on. So the word here used in the Greek is connected to the word that's used in the Hebrew. The Hebrew was tzitzit. That put these tassels on. The Greek word here, that's why some translations say corner, is the same word. This lady saw his tassels and thought, if I touch them, the contagion spreading out from me will get reversed and holiness comes in and I'm made clean. Why the heck would she think that? Why this rabbi and not all the other rabbis? I got chills right now. Malachi 3. So what's happening in Malachi? God's mad. I love you guys. What the heck? You defile and you offer these defiled sacrifices. You're not cleaning with truth. You're defiled. You're abandoning the truth. You're not guarding with wisdom. You're not living with the systems I wanted you to live with. There's no boundaries. You're exposed. And because you're exposed, what's happening? We're not extending the community. The community is fracturing. And so there was a promise in Malachi. So when the Jewish rabbis would pray over the people, a tradition developed. They would hold up part of the garment that they would have with their tassels hanging from it. And they would hold that up and they would pray over the people. And in praying over the people, the idea is we are covered in the wings of God, covered in the tassels, covered in the tzitzit. This was a normal practice, which is why there's a prophecy in Malachi that says this. The Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his tzitzit, the corner of his garments, his tassels, his wings. This woman threw some elbows and went all in on this idea. That's the Son of Righteousness, and there's healing in those wings. And if I touch it, I'll be healed. There's a lot that I don't understand. Life is immensely unfair, and there is a ton of suffering in it. Why did she have this for 12 years? I don't get it. I don't get it. At any point in anybody's life, there's a lot of good and a little bad, a lot of bad and a little good, and some mix of all of it. All I know is this idea. Jesus reverses the spread and contagion of dirt in a way that I'm still not over. So he does it with mild skin issues. He does it with medical issues that can't be solved. Mark 5:35, another passage I just want to read to you real quick. So the background of this passage is Jesus is speaking. People come to him, and they're at the synagogue ruler's house, and his daughter's died. And so why bother the teacher anymore? Your daughter is dead. But Jesus, when he heard the message spoken, immediately said to the ruler of the synagogue, don't be afraid, only believe. Now, he's operating in the Jewish system here at the synagogue. He allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. He came to the synagogue ruler's house and saw an uproar, weeping and great wailing. When he had entered in, he said to them, why do you make an uproar and weep? The child isn't dead, but is asleep. They laughed him to scorn, but he, having put them all out, took the father of the child, her mother, and those who were with him, and went in where the child was lying. Now, there's a reason the text emphasizes this, taking the child by the hand. Why does it emphasize taking the child by the hand? Because again, in any other story, guess what the worst kind of defilement was? Not cleaning with truth, touching a dead body. Isn't that great that they figured that out a long time ago, that we shouldn't touch dead bodies? I mean, again, a lot of the idea of truth is simple and straightforward. Don't harm yourself. Control yourself or others will. Except in this story, taking the child by the hand, he said to her, Talitha Kumi, which means, being interpreted, little girl, I tell you, arise. Immediately the girl rose up and walked, for she was 12 years old. They were amazed with great amazement. He strictly ordered them that no one should know this, and commanded that something should be given to her to eat. I'm all in on ancient wisdom. Clean, guard, extend just works. Fruit of the Spirit, highest way we can live as humans. Nothing better. Give me something better that would make the world transformed other than the Beatitudes. They are the most profound, highest accomplishment in human thought for how behavior should operate. It's the only way that you shame the shame back, and you're never defined by anything or anyone. You have a secure identity within. That's how a group of people became so empowered that they upended the Roman Empire. I'm all in on that. And I can talk to a lot of people in a lot of situations, and it happens almost every day, for sure every week, where I'm meeting people where they are, just talking about ancient wisdom and these high ideals in humanity. But there's only one way you live it out at the depths. We are designed for a secure attachment to Jesus, who beats everything that gets us left out in the cold and in the dark. And we see it here in Mark 5. Jesus touches a corpse and reverses the evil. Mark 1:23, another example of this idea of what's happening in these passages. Immediately there was in their synagogue, Jesus is in the Jewish life doing the work, a man with a unclean spirit. The Gospels call it an unclean spirit. Jesus is the cleaning force, cleaning the house, expelling the evil. So Jesus isn't having to power up over evil, he's just evicting it. We looked at this a couple weeks ago. Jesus says, how do I do this work? Luke 11. How am I cleaning this house? Because the kingdom is here. I'm raiding evil and I'm cleaning it out. I'm not just trying to break rules. The kingdom is here. I'm making the Sabbath what it was supposed to be. He said when they came back to him, look, it's working. We're driving out demons and we're doing miracles. He's like, don't rejoice in that. Rejoice in the intimacy you have with me, because I saw Satan fall like lightning. This is an already done deal. We are the greater power. Evil isn't a co-equal force. And everything that I'm doing and everything that I'm doing on the Sabbath isn't just to break the rules, but to show you this is what the Sabbath is for. It's the restoration of people. Nothing about us fighting evil is a formula. It's just an intimate relationship with the Father, Son, and the Spirit. And when we leave the truth, we're not guarding the house, we open the door to evil. And all of us at some level, in some ways, are connected to people, and in our own lives, we fail to guard with wisdom. What do? Last week, we saw this idea that dirt creates the condition for the infestation. Unseen spiritual beings that are a lesser version of the good. So it's our job to stand guard at the house with wisdom. This week, what I want you to see is when we fail to stand guard, and we do sometimes, and when others fail to stand guard, Jesus reverses the flow from evil that creeps in to a light that overpowers the darkness. Goodness has a greater power to spread than evil. Jesus flips the flow of evil so we and others can enter back into the house because it's been made sacred space. Holiness spreads faster than filth when Jesus is in the room. I believe that with every fiber of my being. Like, I show up in coaching chats and I believe it's going to be the most life-changing thing they've ever had happen. I show up in a leadership setting and I believe it's the most life-changing thing they've ever had happen. I show up in speaking moments and I believe it's the most life-changing thing they've ever happened. I believe that I show up in parenting moments and it's the most life-changing thing they've ever happened. And it's not a hype state for me, because that's not it at all. And if you saw me in those moments, you would see a fluctuation and a variation of tone. And I love laughing and hanging out and being silly and being stupid. And I love being intense. And I love bringing the truth where I find the truth. But here's what I know. In these stories, and I love this phrase so much. I heard it last week. I'm going to rework it a little bit. Jesus' presence is an intervention. Jesus' presence is an intervention. And if Christ is in me and the world is crucified to me and I'm crucified to it, my presence is an intervention. So not only am I not afraid of evil, because it's not a co-equal force, I'm counteracting it. I'm in places that when I see what the goodness of Jesus can do, I am locked in. And I wish I've lived that way for a long time, but I haven't. When I first really started coming to a place of seeking God with my whole heart, the best I could, I got into some just stupid Pharisaical legalism. And I was so afraid to get defiled. I'm really embarrassed to tell you this. Like, my brother was going through a really hard time. And I really did try to do my best to love him and reach out to him. But I was so stupid and legalistic. And I'm embarrassed to tell you this. It's silly because I don't freaking care now. But like, if he didn't play Christian music, I was like, can you just not play that music? So freaking dumb. So stupid. Why? Because I didn't understand. I didn't understand how this works. And I wasn't in a place of being able to clean with truth and guard with wisdom and extend unity and deepen the relationship to him. And of course, I've come to him and apologized. And this is exactly why Jesus was accused of being a glutton and a drunkard, you know, because he wasn't living that way. And there are parts of my life that people wouldn't feel comfortable with, and that's okay with me. I mean, I remember being a pastor driving up to the apartment that I lived in, and the guy that lived beside me, super nice. He wanted to be close in some way, I could tell. He went to some big barbecue, and he knew I loved barbecue and brought me some. But when I would drive up and he'd be sitting on his little 2 steps in front of his door drinking his beer, I'd watch him just slide it in between his legs and try to hide it, you know. Whatever, that's his own thing. I don't care. I just don't freaking care. I was with a friend of mine a few weekends ago, and we had some drinks. And he was like, I can tell you're not judging me for all these Zen I'm popping. And I'm like, no, I don't freaking care, because that ain't the point. The point is so much deeper than all this. And I think what's happened for a lot of us is because we so don't understand Jesus. And I feel like there's this little part of me that's going, man, I better clean some of up what I'm saying right now. Paul's very clear in Romans 14. You do what helps you. Don't violate your conscience, whatever is between you and your faith journey. But we can't really read the scripture and understand what it means to interact with evil because we don't understand this relationship with purity, because we try to beat evil with technique. And that ain't it. The Gospels show us it's about intimacy with the Father. That's where our power comes from. This also should change how we read scripture. We approach the Bible and we don't look for this moral battle versus rebellion. We're looking at life and restoration. It's a healthier view of evil as dirt because we don't focus on how we cast it out. We just get focused in on the truth and we guard with wisdom. And it's less about performance and more about presence. It's about the direction of our journeys, not the perfection of it. But this is not how most people live with it. In the 9th grade, I had the opportunity to be in a hot air balloon race. It was a really cool experience. I actually crashed. It was the wildest thing. The pilot was like, "We're going down. Grab a post." I was just up there spitting and watching how far it would go down. So grab the post, we crash. It was just a crazy experience. We're in a small town, Mississippi, where this balloon race occurred. I'll never forget this. We're walking in the restaurant, 9th grade. There is nothing in this town. It's a podunk town, know nothing town. And we walk in and there's a bouncer at the door. And I say I'm a kid. We're with adults. I'm like, why is there a bouncer at the door? To keep the blank out. And we walk in, and everybody sitting down being served, I saw this with my eyes, is white. Everybody serving is black. Evil. Evil. Horrible. Very clearly evil. No truth there. No guarding with wisdom. No extending with unity. And most people I've experienced in spiritual leadership that are insecure act more like I did with my brother when I was really stupid, like I'm some kind of bouncer for Jesus in purity. And we are not living God's heart when we do that.
I hope you enjoyed this teaching from 15 And. Go to 15and.org, share these resources with others, and click the Donate Now button to participate in funding this mission.